Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on the Time and Attendance WorkCenter and Centralized Delegation coming in September 2026. Thank you for attending. Our audience today is time and labor and absence administrators, and I hope many of you attended our webinar on July 21st, which featured timesheet and absence entry enhancements. If you were not able to attend that webinar, the presentation deck and the recording are available on the Cardinal website. We'll provide that link later in the presentation. We will also hold a third time and attendance webinar on August 26th to review the timesheet and absence entry enhancements with our time and labor supervisors, absence supervisors, and timekeepers. For our agenda today, I'll give you a quick overview of what to expect in today's webinar, and I'll fill you in on the upgrade project. I'll then turn it over to Susie Hilton from the TA team, who will cover some frequently asked questions about the timesheet and absence changes. Kranti Natuva, our TA lead, will then review the new time and attendance WorkCenter and delegation features, and will provide live demonstrations of each. We will provide opportunities throughout the presentation to respond to questions. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some next steps to help prepare you for the upgrade. If you have agency-specific questions, please enter a help desk ticket, and someone from the TA team will respond to your inquiry. And on a similar note, if you have a request for additional enhancements beyond what you see today, please enter a help desk ticket so we can ensure your request is captured. These requests will be reviewed after we go live. If we don't discuss a particular Cardinal function, it is likely unchanged as part of the upgrade. Agency users will not have access to a training environment to preview the upgraded system. However, the Cardinal team is updating all job aids and other training materials, which will be made available to you prior to the upgrade. Retaking completed training is not required, although you are certainly welcome to consider it. Many of you attended our July 21st webinar and learned a bit about the Cardinal Upgrade project. But in case you missed it, the Cardinal team is enhancing both FIN and HCM, upgrading these applications to the latest PeopleSoft releases. We started the project in September 2025, and we plan to go live on September 8th, 2026. The upgrade includes numerous enhancements aimed at improving the user experience and overall system functionality. Our summer webinars are designed to help you become familiar with many of the new features of the upgrade. So one of the frequent questions we have received during these webinars is, will I still have access to my favorites? Well, generally the answer to this question is no. Homepage personalizations and navbar favorites will automatically be removed as part of the upgrade. This is because in the upgraded environment, existing personalizations and favorites may be linked to pages or menu items that no longer exist. But good news, we will be sending a communication out to all users with instructions for recreating favorites in the upgraded system. You may want to take a screenshot of your existing personalizations and favorites so that you're prepared. But we'll put all of this in our upcoming communication. And more good news, stay tuned for Kranti's WorkCenter presentation. With so many new features included in the WorkCenter, you may not even need to recreate your favorites. With that all being said, I'm going to now turn it over to Susie Hilton.
I wanted to just start with revisiting some of the questions that we got during and after our first webinar. There were several questions that we got around canceling absence requests and around some of the updated job aids and videos. And so we just wanted to take a few minutes before we jump into the other topics to revisit those and just make sure that everyone's on the same page with some of these questions that were kind of a common theme during and after our previous webinar. So with the canceling absence requests, we received questions about employees canceling approved absences. We did demo that. Employees are now going to be able to cancel even an approved absence request, but it's not going to automatically fully be canceled. Instead, it's going to be routed to their current supervisor, who can then either approve the cancellation request or deny the cancellation request. So it's not that the employee can fully cancel it in the new environment. It's just that the employee is now going to be able to initiate that absence cancellation of an approved absence. So that is a change from today, where today they have to reach out to their supervisor outside of Cardinal and request that the supervisor cancels it on their behalf. The next question we got is, can an employee cancel an absence request that has already been processed and the leave period has already been finalized? Yes. This is no different than today. Just as today, a supervisor can cancel an absence that has already been processed, an employee is also going to be able to initiate that cancellation, even if the absence has already been processed, it's already been finalized in a prior period. The absence calculation process runs every night, and it updates employee absence balances. So after the supervisor has approved that cancellation, then absence calc is going to run that night and update the employee's balances. So this is no different than today. The next question was, how does a new supervisor evaluate a cancellation request if a previous manager approved the original leave? And that's going to happen the same way in the future as it does today. Today, if an employee has an approved absence that they need to cancel, they need to go to their current supervisor and work with them. The current supervisor would need to do their due diligence to determine if the absence should be canceled or edited, or if not. So there's no difference there. The only difference is that when the employee initiates the cancellation, it's going to route to the current supervisor for approval. The next questions that we got revolved around the timesheet and how the timesheet is viewed. We were asked, what does it look like for employees who have multiple jobs? So if an employee has multiple jobs, it's going to default to their primary job, and then they will have this link where they can click to select another job. That will open up the pop-up window where they can select the job title, and then that will load the appropriate timesheet for them. The next question we got is, well, what does it look like for a wage employee? Because during our demos in the first webinar, we were demoing using an employee with a set work schedule. So we were asked, what is it going to look like for a wage employee? Are they going to have the status bar? So a wage employee will not have the status bar. So you won't see that status bar here, and you won't see a status bar under each day. The status bar is completely gone for wage employees. You will see the number of hours that is reported underneath each day for that day. So you'll still be able to see that. But since wage employees do not have expected hours by day, then there's no need to have that status bar. We demoed in the first webinar using an employee that had a set work schedule, 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And we were asked, well, what does it look like for somebody who has a different set work schedule? So it's going to look very similar to the one that we demoed with. It's just that the scheduled hours for each of those days is going to show as appropriate. So for this employee, we can see that on Monday, this employee is scheduled to work 10 hours for the day. Sunday, the employee is not scheduled to work. Monday, the employee is scheduled to work 10 hours. Tuesday, the employee is scheduled to work 9 hours. Wednesday, 4 hours. Thursday, 10 hours. And Friday, 7 hours. So it's going to show that 0 of 10, 0 of 9, 0 of 4. And then when they report the hours, it will show the number of hours that have been reported, just like we demoed. The next question we got is, what does the status bar look like for employees with a variable work schedule? For them, just like today, their scheduled hours are 168 for the week, 24 hours a day. So theirs is going to show 0 of 24 each day. But this is not, they're not used to seeing the status bar today, but they are used to seeing the scheduled 168 hours. So I don't think that this is going to be confusing for our employees who have a variable work schedule, because they're all already used to seeing the scheduled hours at 168 as opposed to 40 hours for the week. And this is just going to give them that visual of, okay, I've reported 8 hours, or I've reported 10 hours for the day out of the 24 that it shows. So this is what it'll look like for our employees with a variable work schedule. The next questions that we got were all about the training materials and the courses. And all of the resources. We got a lot of questions about that. So all of our Cardinal job aids and all of the training courses and all of the related materials are being updated, and they will be made available prior to September 8th, prior to our go live date. We also have a website that for pre-release job aids and some additional support materials. This is an upgrade website where you can see some of the job aids that are specifically impacted by our updates. So any of the job aids related to the topics from our first webinar and the webinar that we're doing today, those job aids either are already or will be very soon available on the upgrade page. So things like delegation, because that's changing, and that's one of the reasons we're here today, is to explain the delegation. So the job aids related to delegation will be available on the upgrade page a little bit earlier, so you can take a look at those. We do have another webinar for our supervisors and our timekeepers. We will send the full recording to all supervisors and timekeepers. And the content for that webinar is the content that you received in the first webinar and what you are receiving today. So it's one webinar kind of combining the content, and that webinar is going to be more specific to supervisors and timekeepers, combining and discussing the same topics. And our communications team is going to be sending a communication directly out to time reporters the end of August that details all of the changes and provides links to a video for job aids and other reference materials to help them be better prepared for our go live day. Now we have a video to share with you today, and the video that we're going to share is kind of a review of what we discussed in the first webinar, and it highlights the TA updates. So this is a video that we hope that you will enjoy, and that it will be a good recap of what we introduced to you in our first webinar, and also that we think that this video will be a good resource for you to share with your supervisors to give them an idea, a quick review of, or a quick preview of some of the updates that are coming their way.
I'm Cardinal Ken, your favorite TA supervisor, reporting live with breaking news. Cool new TA updates are coming soon, including a new and improved look and feel with great new features for entering and managing time and absences in Cardinal. Let's get into it. Before we get into what's new, let's take a look at the current layout. There are no changes in terms of how to navigate to your timesheet, so let's go ahead and click the Time tile. Notice the section options in the left-hand menu. There are going to be some changes to this with the upcoming update. Let me show you. The upcoming timesheet layout features a more intuitive design that makes navigation easier. When your new timesheet displays, one of the first changes you will see are the new sections and pages available on the navigation panel. Enter Time by Day is a new page where you can quickly enter time one day at a time. Cancel Absences is a convenient page to easily cancel absence requests when plans change. From here, you can cancel absences even after your supervisor has approved them. Once canceled, the cancellation request routes to your reports to supervisor for approval. And Approval Monitor is a new page where you can check the approval status of time and absences. Now let's zoom back out to the new timesheet. The default view is still the weekly view, but you can easily change the view here. You can also navigate to another week by using the calendar icon. Did you notice there isn't a Refresh Timesheet button on this page? The new timesheet refreshes automatically when the view or dates are changed. Now, let's quickly compare the current timesheet with the new timesheet. Our current timesheet defaults to 3 rows, and we start with entering our hours first and then selecting the TRC. The Submit button is below the timesheet grid. Let's take a look at our new timesheet. The new timesheet starts with the Time Reporting Codes field, and instead of defaulting to 3 rows, it will default to 1, but you can easily add or remove rows as needed. After you enter your hours, you will be looking for that Submit button. Instead of being under the timesheet grid, it is now here. Another new feature is Related Actions. Anytime there are related actions, you will see these 3 little dots. Here, the related actions are Save for Later and Request in Absence. And that wraps up a few of the exciting new features coming your way. This new and upcoming timesheet is definitely breaking newsworthy. Stay tuned for more information coming soon. Thanks for watching.
Okay, before we proceed, we do have one question for Susie from our audience on the question about canceling a leave request that has already processed. Susie mentioned once the cancellation processes and Cardinal updates overnight, the leave will update. Will balances now update daily when this occurs, or does it wait until paycheck date when other leave events update?
All right, this is a great question. Thank you for asking for this additional clarification. There is no change in the future to how it's happening today. Today, the absence calculation process runs every night and updates balances, but you can only see those updated balances in a few places in Cardinal. And then there are certain places in Cardinal, like on the absence tab, where you're seeing the balances as of the last finalized period. So that's not changing. In any of the absence balances pages that show leave balances as of the last finalized period, you're still going to see those as of the last finalized period. But pages like the results by calendar page, the employee leave report, when you run it for the current open period, those are the places that you can see the balances as of last night, as of the night before when absence calc ran. So that's the same as today as it will be in the future. Also, employees can review their balances on the comprehensive absence summary page through the time tile. And that page has two options of viewing. One is viewing the balances as of the last finalized period, and one is viewing for the current open period. So if balances changed in a prior period, then they would be able to see those updated balances if they're looking at it as of the current open period.
Thanks, Susie. I think we're now ready to turn it over to Kranti.
All right, thank you. That video we just watched gave us a good recap of what we covered in the previous webinar, and also a helpful reminder of some of the changes employees and supervisors will see. So our goal today is not simply to show you a few new screens. Our goal is to make sure you are understanding what is changing. And as we go through this next section, I don't want you to memorize every page, every link, or every click. Instead, I want you to watch for three things. First one, what is changing? Second, how does it make your work easier? And the third one is, what will your users need to understand before go live? So if you keep those three things in mind, you will have the context you need without getting buried in the details. We are going to focus on two areas today. First, I'll introduce the new time and attendance WorkCenter, which brings many of the things that the TA core users work into one central location. Then we will look at the changes to delegation, including where you access it and how the experience is changing and what is staying the same. So let's start with the time and attendance WorkCenter. So what exactly is this time and attendance WorkCenter? The easiest way to think about this is it's a central hub for time and attendance core users. Today, depending upon what you're trying to accomplish, you may have to navigate to several different places, like to review exceptions, to complete approvals, run a query, access a report, or perform an administrative task. With this WorkCenter, it brings many of those commonly used functions together into like one workspace. And I want to emphasize one thing here. The one WorkCenter is not taking functionality away. You can still use this existing Cardinal functionality by navigating where appropriate through the navbar. What we're doing is giving you another more convenient way to get to the work you perform most often. So rather than spending time remembering multiple navigation paths, this WorkCenter gives you a central place to see what needs your attention, quickly access the pages, the queries, reports, and processes for use for your day-to-day time and attendance responsibilities. One other important point is what an individual sees in the WorkCenter will depend on the security roles that they have in Cardinal. So now let me break down the main sections that you're going to see in the WorkCenter. There are 5 main areas I want you to become familiar with. First is the My Work section. So think of My Work as your to-do list. This is where you will see items such as exceptions that may require your review or correction to some data. The advantage here is visibility. So instead of navigating through different pages just to determine whether something requires your attention, you can come into the Work Center and quickly see the items that you may need to work on. The next one is My Approvals. This brings you the pending time and attendance transactions that you need to approve into the same workspace. And depending upon your role and delegated authority, that may include reported time, payable time, absence transactions, or delegation related approvals. Again, the key benefit here is the consolidation. You don't necessarily have to leave the work center, navigate somewhere else just to see what's waiting for your approval. The third area is the links. This gives you direct navigation to many of the pages you use for normal time and attendance responsibilities. Think about a page you may only use once a month or maybe once a quarter. You may know exactly what that page does, but you may not remember the complete navigation path to get there. The Work Center gives you a shortcut. You can directly access those links from the Work Center. Then we have queries and reports and processes. So to make these easier to use, what we have done is we have grouped them into two categories: the most run and must run. So must run, it includes the recurring queries and reports that are important for payroll or compliance, while most run includes the ones users access most frequently. So the overall concept of the Work Center is pretty simple. My work is telling you what needs your attention. My work, my approvals tells you what is waiting for your approval, and links, queries, reports, and process help you to get to the tools that you need to complete your work. Now, let's take a look at more closely at how those links are organized. Okay, the links section is organized into role-based functional groups. And that distinction is important because not everyone will see every group that you see on that slide. What appears for you is driven by your cardinal security roles. So for supervisors and timekeepers, you will see areas such as manage time, manage absences, giving you the direct access to the pages used to enter, review, and manage those transactions. For TA or AM administrators, you will have those administrative groups that take you to the processing pages associated with those responsibilities. You will also see the administrator setup for users who are responsible for employee level time and attendance setup, like enrolling an employee into time and labor, bypassing an employee, enrolling an employee in shift differential. That's all under administrator setup. There are also links associated with the delegation and grace approvals for users who hold those responsibilities. And finally, the fifth one is the other links, which provides access to tools such as Report Manager and Process Monitor. So the important takeaway from this section is that you do not need to remember every folder name. The Work Center organizes these pages around the work you actually perform rather than requiring you to remember the complete navigation path every time. And if a page, query, or report isn't available through the Work Center, the existing Cardinal navigation is still available. So rather than just talking about it, I'm going to show you what it looks like in the upgraded future environment. So I'm going to switch over. As I walk through this, I'm going to keep the demo intentionally very high level. We're not going to teach every click today. The updated job aids and training materials will provide the detailed step-by-step instructions. What I want you to focus on is where things are located, how they are grouped, and how easily you can move from identifying something that needs your attention to actually taking action on it. This is the new homepage. Again, this green bird indicates this is the upgraded future environment. So I'm in a test environment here, and here there's a TA WorkCenter on the homepage. Once I'm in the WorkCenter, notice the sections along the left side of the navigation panel. These are the different 5 sections that we just discussed. So the first one is the My Work section. So let's start with My Work. As I said, this is the to-do list concept. You can immediately see exceptions that require your attention rather than navigating to another page just to determine whether you have exceptions. You can see them directly here. You can select either the allowable exceptions and look at them and allow them from here, or you can look at these fixed exceptions. And these 3 dots are called related actions. You see them on multiple new pages. When you see them, you can click on them and take action. So for an allowable exception, you can click and allow the exception, or in some cases, these related actions will take you to a different page that you can view the data and come back to the WorkCenter. So that's really the theme of this WorkCenter: visibility and direct access to the things that you need to work on in the My Work section. And we currently have exceptions under My Work. But in future, we would probably add more things, and communications will be sent out when new items are added to your My Work section. Next is the My Approvals, and this consolidates the time and attendance transactions that are waiting for your approval. So you will notice the approvals that will include like time, absence, or absence cancellation, or delegation related transactions are all shown here. And it depends on what roles you have. And if you're not an AM supervisor and do not have absence in Cardinal, you might not be receiving any of these absence requests. Now let's look at the links. These are role-based, as we just discussed. What you see is based on what roles you have. So if you are a supervisor or a timekeeper, you would see manage time, manage absences. And if you're an administrator, you would see administer time. And if you're an AM administrator, you would see administer absences. If you are an employee setup admin, you will have administer setup. Manage delegation, administer delegation. Manage delegation is for supervisors. Administer delegation is available for your administrators. And then there's this other links. I will take you to the process monitor and report manager. And as I said, most of the pages are now accessible through this central WorkCenter. But if you do not see something as part of the WorkCenter, you can still use the same navigation bar and go back and access those pages. I'm going to show you one other thing here. Manage time, manage schedule. This is the one thing that's changing, that you can no longer access through the nav bar. Manage schedules is the only page that you have to access it through WorkCenter. That's the only one that we do not have the capability to access through the navigation bar. So if you have to update someone's schedule, add a new schedule, you have to go through the WorkCenter. And this will be also included in the next webinar. We're going to tell all the supervisors that they have to go through the WorkCenter to manage schedules. Rest all remains the same. So some links, when you click on them, it opens up in a new window. Some of them opens up here in the transaction panel here, like as how you see the fixed exception. So keep that in mind. When you click on something, it might sometimes open up in a new window, and you can go access them from there. Now let's take a look at the queries. We have 2 sections: must run queries and the most run queries. So we group them based on payroll needs or compliance needs. They are all under must run, and most run, they are grouped based on the frequency of use, the users that are using them most frequently. We looked at that data and grouped them in that most run queries. And the same thing for reports. We have 2 sections here: most run reports and the must run reports. If I summarize what you just saw, My Work is giving you the visibility to the items that require your action. And My Approvals is consolidating your time and attendance approvals, which you can access from one location. Links, these are providing role-based navigation shortcuts. And queries and reports processes, here we have put those recurring tools that you want to use. You don't have to go out to the navigation bar. You can go access them directly from here. So the goal here is not to change your responsibilities, is to make it easier to get the work done. And that wraps up this Work Center portion. Before we move into delegation, let's take a pause for some questions.
Kranti, we do have one question. Can interfacing agencies see the fix exception page?
Yes, they can. It is applicable for both online and interfacing.
I think that's the only question. Also pointed out the discrepancy between the TA Work Center tile and the time and labor Work Center page. If I recall, that's a PeopleSoft discrepancy.
That is correct. PeopleSoft has set it up like that. And in future, there might be a separate absence Work Center. It's part of the enhancements that Oracle is trying to provide.
And just to follow up on that, so just as Kranti is saying, we're trying to use delivered functionality as much as possible. So we are working with Oracle where there are these discrepancies and raising things up rather than doing customizations or using delivered. It's a good call out, but thank you for looking at that.
All right. Well, thanks for those questions. One final question's out here. What is forecast now called, Susie? We have a new name for forecast.
Check eligibility.
Check eligibility. Okay, now we are going to turn it back over to Kranti, and he's going to walk you through the delegation tiles.
Okay, thank you, Dana. So one other big change that's happening is with delegation. Delegation is going to look noticeably different after the upgrade. So let's start with how you are going to access it. So one of the biggest improvements is that delegation will now have its own delegation tile directly on the Cardinal HCM homepage, which I'm going to show it to you when I do the demo. For supervisors, that provides much more visible starting point than the navigations they are used to today. And these delegation related functionality can also be accessed through the time and attendance work center based on your role. And if you receive a delegation of authority request that requires your action, a pending request can appear under My Approvals in the Work Center too. So there are really two ideas to remember here. Delegation is easier to find, and delegation related work is more connected to the rest of your time and attendance workspace in the Work Center. So one terminology note before we continue. In some current training materials, you may be familiar with the term proxy. In the upgraded experience, you will see this as the term delegate. I'm going to show that to you when I do the demo on the current versus the new pages. So throughout the rest of this presentation, I will use delegate instead of a proxy. So we are consistent with the new experience. Now let's look at what supervisors will see when they open the delegation tile. For supervisors, the delegation tile gives you three primary options. The first is the create delegation request. And this is where you go when you want to delegate your approval authority to another eligible approver. The second is the My Delegates. This is where you can review and manage the delegation requests that you have assigned to other people. It's no longer called as My Proxies. It's called My Delegates. And the third is the My Delegated Authorities. Think about that one just from the opposite direction. This is where you can see the authority that someone else has delegated to you, and you can respond to those delegation requests from that My Delegated Authorities. So the simple way to remember the difference is My Delegates is what I delegated to others, and My Delegated Authorities is what others delegated to me. The functionality is similar. You all are familiar with it, but the pages have been redesigned as part of the modernized user experience with easier navigation and better support for use on mobile devices. Delegation administrators, if you have the delegation administrator role, you are going to see two additional options. So the first one is the administer delegation tile, and this gives the administrators the ability to search and review delegation activity for employees they are authorized to support. So the search experience for this tile has also been modernized. Rather than relying on some of the prompt-based navigation that you are familiar with today, the redesigned page provides a simpler search experience, can be more user-friendly on mobile devices. And the second option is the administer create delegation. This allows an authorized administrator to create a delegation on behalf of a supervisor when needed. And just as with the supervisor pages, these administrative pages are part of the same modernized user experience, and can also be accessed through the WorkCenter if your security role provides access to it. So one thing I want to be very clear about here is what you can see, whom you can search for, and whom you can act for continues to be controlled by your Cardinal security access. We are just making the pages easier to navigate. We are not changing the underlying model for delegation. And now that we have covered this, where you access the delegation from, let's look at the specific enhancements you will notice when you use it. Again, we have administrators from both online and interfacing agencies. The interfacing agencies might be correcting employees' timesheet only in a very few rare cases that you might need approval. Interfacing agencies that do approvals in their own timekeeping systems might not use this delegation functionality much in Cardinal unless that interface admin is not available and wants to delegate that responsibility to someone else in the agency. But this is a very nice feature for those administrators and supervisors for online agencies are the ones that are going to use this more frequently than the interfacing administrators. So someone asked a question about DBHDS, whether they are going to come into Cardinal. No, interfacing agencies remain with their own systems. There's not going to be any change with that. The approvals will happen. If there is delegation functionality in your own timekeeping systems, that's going to remain there within your timekeeping systems. This is more for interface administrators and more for online agency supervisors and admins. So let me move on to the slide, delegation enhancement. So there are several enhancements on this slide, and rather than simply reading the list, I want to explain what each one means when you're actually doing the work. So the first enhancement is the guided request creation. So creating a delegation is now a guided activity. So instead of working through a single page and determining what needs to be completed, the system walks you through the request step by step. You will select the appropriate information moving through each step, review the request, and then submit it. The benefit is that the process is easier to follow and it's much clearer when you are in the transaction. The second enhancement is the multiple delegate routing. This is a significant change because you can now delegate transactions to multiple delegates. There is one important behavior I want everyone to remember this. If you already have pending transactions in your queue, created the delegation, the first delegate who accepts receives those existing pending transactions. So let me say that again, because it's very important to remember that if a second delegate have accepted it, he's not going to see anything existing. So the first delegate would see all of that. After multiple delegates have accepted the delegation, the new transactions route to all of the accepted delegates, and one of them can take action. So I just want to repeat that. If you already have pending transactions in your queue, when you have created the delegation, the first delegate who accepts it receives those pending transactions. Only the first delegate. The new transactions route to all of the accepted delegates after multiple delegates have accepted the delegation, and one of them can take action on those approvals. And the third enhancement here is the absence workflow updates. So delegation now supports new transactions, which they were not available in the current environment. The absence request is being separated out from reported time. And we now also have absence cancellation approvals. So there are new transactions that you could delegate now that you have to select while you are creating that delegation request. So the next one is the smarter validation. Today, one issue that can occur is when someone already has an active delegation and then attempts to create another one without realizing the first delegation is still in place. That's a common issue, and they open tickets because the system does not give any message. So in the upgraded experience, the system provides an immediate notification when it detects that situation. So instead of discovering the issues later, the user receives information while they are creating the request and can determine what action is needed. The last one is the mobile-friendly experience. That means users can more easily access, review, and act on these delegation requests from supported smartphones and tablets when needed. We also have the improved search. I skipped that one. The administrator delegation search page has been redesigned. So the prompt pages have been replaced with simpler selections. Administrators can search for the delegator or delegatee using the employee's name now. So with all of these enhancements together, the overall theme is fewer navigation barriers, clearer steps, and more flexibility and a modernized user experience. Have talked about quite a few things that are changing. Just as important is understand what is not changing. So this slide is important because after seeing all of these new pages and navigation options, it's easy to assume that the entire delegation process has changed, but it has not. The process is fundamentally the same. The user experience around it has been modernized. The delegation remains the same. Your security roles and permissions remain the same. The existing delegation concepts and eligibility requirements, they all remain the same. Just as today, a delegation does not become active simply because the request was created. The delegate still has to accept the request before the delegation becomes active. So when you leave this session, I want you to remember this distinction. The business process is not being reinvented. The experience of creating, managing, and navigating delegation is being improved. So that should also help you when you are communicating these changes to your agency users, to your supervisors. We do have a session to go through this with the supervisors too. Users do not need to relearn the purpose of delegation. They just need to become familiar with this new experience for accomplishing the delegation functionality. Now, let's put all of these pieces together and look at the upgraded delegation experience. Let me switch back to the demo. Let me log in. So I'm going to show you the delegation first as a supervisor and then as a delegation administrator. Similar to the WorkCenter demo, focus less on memorizing each click and more on the flow of the process and what has changed from the current experience. To make it more clear, what I would want to show is login into two environments. So this is the new environment, the new future upgraded environment where you see this bird as green, whereas this blue bird is the current environment. So I'm going to show them side by side so you could see what is changing. So as I said, this is the current environment right now. So if you are a supervisor and have to do a delegation, you have to go through this navigation bar and go to self-service, manage delegation. So it takes you to this page where you see these different links. And here in the new upgraded world, you have the tile you could click on, and the supervisors are going to see these three. If you are a delegation administrator, you will have access to all 5 of these tiles. So let me just compare this with what you have currently. This create delegation request is the same. It just has been changed to another tile. And the page looks very different because these pages are designed to be accessible through mobile phones. Creating a delegation request, if you look at the page, it looks very different. I'm not going to stage a transaction in the current one. I'm going to do it in the future one. But as you see, these pages look completely different. So let me switch. This is the future new experience where this is a step-by-step activity guide. And you can go enter a comment, click next. The pop-up message, there is an active delegation already. That's something that you do not have in the current world, that it does not prompt or tell you that you get that error. Here, as I said, you could select not just one. This is no longer a radio button. This is a checkbox. So you could select all, and you could select multiple and delegate your transaction to multiple users. And this remains the same. As I said, you might see more transactions here, like the absence cancellation is new, but do not focus on what transactions are here. Delegation is only applicable to time and attendance. Just say select all. That's how you do it now. And click on next. And then you can submit it. It's a step-by-step activity guide, and now the delegation has been set up. So you can go click on My Delegates. So you have this Group Transactions button, which we are delegating all transactions to the same user anyway. Previously, it showed all of them. Now you don't need to. You can group them because they all are delegated to the same supervisor, and you can select and revoke a transaction from here. And this page is also very different than what you have currently. So these are more mobile-friendly pages. Now, going back, the My Delegated Authorities is where if someone has delegated their delegation to you as a supervisor, you see them here and you can accept them from here. Again, this is a much better view. You're not seeing all transactions because anyway, we delegate all of them to the same supervisor. You can just group them and just see it as one, and you can just select and accept that transaction. So those are the changes that are happening on the delegation supervisor tiles. Now let me go back to the admin tiles. So these two are the new administrator tiles. Let me switch back to the current environment and how the admin accesses these pages. You could go to Workforce Administration, self-service transaction, approvals, and delegation. So if you're someone that are not frequently delegating your approvals, it's very easy for you to forget this navigation in the current world. But now with the new tile, it's much easier. You could just click on the tile and get here. So the two things here, add delegation request and administer delegation. So this administer delegation is the same. The add delegation request label has been changed to call administer create delegation. So the search page looks very different than what you have right now. So if you click on administer delegation in the current world, this is how the search looks like. But in the new one, it looks very different because there's no prompt based. These are all drop downs. So you could, as you type in, it will access and change the value on your mobile devices. I'm not going to stage a transaction in the current environment, but let me go to the new one. So you could go administer create delegation. Now you see it's user ID. If you know the user ID, you can select it. If you do not know, you can go back, click the prompt, and then you have the search criteria to select a name or an employee ID or email address and select a transaction. And then it takes you through this guided navigation. As an agency delegation administrator, you can search for the supervisors at your agency and you can create delegation requests from here. It's the same activity guide that will take you through. One thing that I want to let you guys know is if that employee supervisor has 2 jobs, you would see instead of 4 steps, you would see 5 steps. There would be a step 2 there. It will ask you to pick the right job title, as how you have seen on the timesheet slide that Susie showed. 2 different titles, you would see that here. And it's the same activity guide even for administrators when they have to go create a delegation on behalf of a supervisor. Now, administer delegation page is also changing. Again, you could search for a delegator from here. You could type in a name and will take you to that exact person that you're typing the name from. And then you can search for that delegator and look at what's being delegated and take action here. You can select and revoke the transaction. So this is a little different than what you currently have. But the bottom line is easy navigation. You can access delegations now through the delegations tile, or there are multiple ways to access delegations. You can go from here, or as I have shown you before, you could go to the TA WorkCenter. You can click on the links. If you don't want to get out of this WorkCenter workspace and you want to work on your delegations, you have the option. If you are a manager, you would see manage delegation. If you are an administrator, you would see administer delegation. So you could do it from here. And there is also a third way you would have access to this enterprise components and delegation. And if you are a supervisor, you will see these three. If you're also a delegation admin, you'll see these five. So there's different ways to access the same thing. What's changing is just the layout of the pages being more modernized, mobile-friendly pages. That's all for the demo, and I think back to Susie and Dana for Q&A.
Thanks, Kranti. We do have some questions. I'm going to turn it over to Susie.
All right. So is the delegate authority restricted to upward delegation only? In other words, are employees prohibited from delegating authority to their own direct reports?
If as a supervisor, that's how it is currently right now, and that's not changing. It is the same functionality on who you could delegate it to. There is no change in that functionality. It remains the same.
With the multiple delegate option, will the delegates be able to see which delegate approved the request? We have the new approval monitor page that can be used to view the details of who approved the hours.
The approval monitor page will give you access to who has approved a particular transaction. But if you actually go to my delegate style, that should show you who has accepted your delegation.
Will supervisors be able to edit delegations that were completed by a delegation administrator?
If a delegation administrator has created a delegation on behalf of the supervisor, yes, the supervisor, if it is his own delegation, he can go back and take action on that because it's the supervisor's delegation. The only reason why an admin would have done that is because the supervisor probably is not able to access Cardinal, sick at a hospital or somewhere. Now the phone functionality is going to help them. They are somewhere, flight got delayed, could not come back. You could open your phone. You don't need access to your computer and set up that delegation. I'm expecting that this delegation administrator doing it on behalf of the supervisor might go down if people can start using their mobile phones and create these delegations.
We have a question about searching on the delegation pages. So can you search by ID number on the administer delegation page?
Like an employee ID? Let me go back and pull that up. And no, it has to be by name. On the administer delegation page, it's not a prompt field. It has to go by name.
For delegations, do you still have to individually set up each transaction?
No, that's not needed. If you want me to show that, let me share my screen back again and let me show that. So when you are adding a delegation request on behalf of an employee, here you have to select all the transactions and save. In the current world, you now probably might be entering all 6 transactions, but in the new upgraded one, that does not need to happen here. This transaction step, it's all here. In the current world, you are entering each one of them manually. You don't no longer need to do that. You can just say, select all, and then it will take you to the next step in the activity guide where you review and submit. So you don't need to do that 7, 8 times.
I think that's all the questions we have. Looking good. We certainly hope that, as we mentioned, we are updating all of our training materials, our web-based training. We're introducing videos. We're sending out additional communications. We're hoping that all of those will make you feel comfortable as you get prepared for the upgrade. And speaking of the upgrades, we have added, as we mentioned earlier, a new upgrade page to the Cardinal website. And here you'll find links to all of our upgrade communications, special videos and infographics, as well as all of the recordings and presentation decks from each of our webinars. We've also added several key time and attendance job aids to help you as you plan for the upgrade. And we do have some additional ones that we need to put up on the website for you. Please keep checking this page regularly as we continue to add resources. And please, we would love your feedback and would appreciate you taking a brief survey. You can scan the QR code on the slide to begin. So we'll have tons of information for you. We're also going to be sending out some targeted comms, all designed to help you be ready for Tuesday, September 8th. So stay tuned. Okay, that brings us to the end of the session. On behalf of the entire Cardinal team, we really want to say thank you for carving out time in your day to be here with us. Your engagement, your chat, questions, all of it is really what we need to help us make the resources we provide more helpful to you. We're excited about what's coming, and we hope today gave you a clearer picture of what to expect. So take care and have a great rest of your day.